Hello and welcome to the fifth episode of the Conscious Conversation series. This is a series of live conversations with familiar faces from the Shiatsu community. I'm Antonia, your host, your digital marketing coordinator here at the Shiatsu Society. I am not a Shiatsu practitioner myself, but I've been honored and fortunate enough to explore the world of Shiatsu through these interviews, through the work that I do with the society, and through lovely connections that we've built throughout the last few months. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. In case you're catching the recording, you'll be able to ask questions, leave comments, share anything that you feel the need to share with us. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our dear guest, Nik Nyriacou, who has kindly accepted our invitation to share with us the space and nuggets of wisdom from his Shiatsu journey and beyond. Welcome, Nik. Please
Hello.
tell us a little bit about yourself and let's just begin the conversation.
Okay. So currently, or for the last 2 or 3 decades, I've been running the London College of Shiatsu with Veronica Howard. But I guess my main part of my training was in Japan. I was there for 5 years studying with Suzuki Sensei. I had a little spell in New York before that with Ohashi, and I started in the late 80s here in London at the college that I'm now teaching at. So it was quite a long journey of training. But that's it in a nutshell.
Wonderful. I cannot wait to find out more. I'm going to try to pull out a few more information from your side. But I would like to start with the basics, to go all the way to the first few days where you connected with Shiatsu, what brought you to the practice, and how has life evolved since then?
Okay. I think my involvement with Shiatsu was more of an accident than anything else. So when I started, it wasn't something that I'd ever would have conceived that I'd be doing. If you asked me when I was a 25-year-old young man if I'd be doing this, I would have said that you were probably crazy and maybe in a parallel universe. I guess I first came across it. I had a treatment. Yeah, I had a treatment because I was working a lot and working late hours and all day, and I developed a bit of a bad back, and I didn't really like all that oily stuff. So I found out about Shiatsu somewhere, and I kind of enjoyed the treatment a lot, and it got me thinking, and I left it at that. And then one day I saw like a little post-it note or something, or advertising, this is way before the internet, advertising the Shiatsu class. And I thought, oh, my friend, that'd be really good for my friend. So I get it, and I'll tell him to go and do it, right? Because he was into like body work and things, but he wasn't interested. And so I thought, well, I'll go instead. So I didn't have any expectations apart from the fact that I thought I'd last about a night and that it wouldn't be for me because there'd be kind of all these alternative people smelling of incense and things, and that wouldn't be my not kind of what I'm used to. But I went in there, and I was, for the first time I'm never late for classes. I'm always on time for all the classes I've ever done. But this particular night, I was a bit late, and I ran into the class, and there's all these people sort of running around doing these kind of making odd noises and swinging their arms, and I thought, oh no, this is my worst nightmare. This is not going to happen to me. But actually, it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think it tapped into a part of me that I'd ignored up to that part. Yeah, I think the idea of connecting with my body and my head and actually connecting with other people in that way, it kind of, a little ting went off in the back of my head. And so I sort of threw myself into it. I really enjoyed the classes. I practiced loads. And yeah, so that was the beginning. And then from there, I guess I got to my late 20s and I kind of hit a dead end with everything, and I really didn't know what to do. And I just woke up one morning, literally, and I thought, that's it, I'm off, I'm going. But where am I going to go? And what am I going to do? And the two things I loved doing more than anything else was scuba diving and shiatsu. So I planned a trip around the world. To everywhere I went, most places. I went to New York, so I couldn't scuba dive there. And so I just sort of planned it like that. And I was only supposed to, so I went to New York and I was there for 6 months, and I studied with Ohashi there, which was hysterical. It was good fun. and he's a character. And then I went to Japan, and I was only supposed to be there for about 4 or 5 weeks. And as soon as I went into Suzuki's class, I thought, I can't go anywhere. I've got to stay here. And I was there for another 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what started with a journey of 4 or 5 weeks ended up in a six
Yeah.
years journey in Japan. That sounds amazing. I'm sure many people listening can relate to your journey in terms of coming to a holistic practice to fulfill a need, to release some pain from the body, having some sort of misconception about the holistic practice itself, thinking that it's full of incense and oily and people doing a lot of weird things around there, and
Well,
then
there's still big things.
I can appreciate that, but at the same time, that's not the only thing that comes
No.
with this practice. And I'm very happy that you've mentioned that because it shows how important it is to keep an open mind at the beginning and to give yourself permission to try new things and then just see
Yes.
where it takes you.
Yes. I think what helped me was I had no preconceptions. So I didn't think, oh, I've got to be good at this or I am good at this. I just enjoyed it. So I went with the flow. And I guess I was very lucky. I mean, I didn't really plan anything. Nothing was ever planned. It just happened. And so I suppose I just followed whatever it was, my instinct. So my instinct told me, you need to stay here because you just connected or, in a class with this Suzuki Sensei I'm talking about, who I thought, well, he's something else, right? This is a real deal in many ways. So why would I leave? And also, I enjoyed Tokyo. Tokyo was fun.
I can imagine. It's definitely on my travel list. I
Yeah.
haven't made it there just yet, but I can imagine it's wonderful. I do want to reflect back at you the fact that you have the capacity to allow yourself to go with the flow, because I think that's wonderful, and not many people nowadays allow themselves to connect with their intuition and just follow the things in the moment as they come.
Well, yeah, but I suppose the whole point about intuition, it's a feeling that you hold inside you rather than a conscious decision, right?
Mm.
You don't think about your intuition, you kind of feel it and you follow it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Has there ever been a moment where you questioned your intuition during this journey?
Was there ever a moment when I questioned my intuition in this
Yeah.
journey?
When the mind tried to get in the way to tell you that maybe it's better to go down the traditional path or follow what the society tells us to do?
No,
No, there wasn't.
no. I mean, there were times when maybe I thought, well, what am I going to do now? I guess when I first, I left Japan for personal reasons. I had to come back to the UK
Mhm.
because I felt it was the right thing to do at the time. It wasn't that I was necessarily ready to leave Tokyo, but I'm glad I did at the time because it's always good to leave on a high. And when I got back, I really didn't plan again, but I was back in London with, okay, what am I going to do now? Because even then, I didn't think I'd make it my career, right? I mean, I did do treatments in Japan, and I did teach little classes. I organized myself in Japan, but did I maybe deep down I visualized myself doing this as a career, but it wasn't something that I planned on doing full-heartedly.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe I did without voicing it. So when I got back, the first 2 or 3 months were, I was a bit not sure of what I was doing, but then I did treatments on people, then someone else asked me, then someone else asked me, and it kind of grew like that. And then I reconnected with the college and Veronica, and she was running the college then, and she asked me if I'd like to teach a class, and I said, sure. I always say yes. And then it kind of went from there.
It comes across as if everything flows very, very easily for you, and I wonder whether that was the case, or whether that's the intuition, the resilience, and the strength that you have to see things that way.
I don't know. It doesn't always feel easy, It's not the easiest profession because you're not guaranteed anything, right? You have to rely on yourself all the time. But I guess if you want to do something and you're willing to allow yourself the time and the space and the effort to see it through, maybe something will happen. And I guess it did. And maybe I was a little bit lucky, or maybe I was just, suck at it.
I find your perspective very inspiring.
Do you?
And yes, I do. I do. I
Okay.
do. I also come from a holistic background.
Yeah.
I'm a yoga teacher, so I
Okay.
do see a lot of these stages, different stages in the journeys of people. And I can tell you that there are many people who doubt themselves and they do not trust their intuition and they find it very difficult to take that leap of faith. And I find it very inspiring that you allowed yourself to go with the flow and to follow your intuition in this way.
Yeah, but you know, when you're doing it, you're not feeling inspired, right?
I
That's the
can
thing. I mean, if
appreciate
I
that.
look back, I didn't like land in Tokyo or land in New York. Think, I'm inspired to do this. I landed and thought, what else am I going to do?
No, but it's
So
the
it was
ripple
more
effect.
prosaic than that,
Yeah.
I guess. But looking back on it, I suppose with the distance, I suppose it can come across like that. But I think it was something that I enjoyed doing, and it gave me something, right? It gave me a purpose. It gave me an outlook that I couldn't get anywhere else, and so I kept with it. And I enjoy the teaching, And so it is, So it's, I teach, I practice. It's, it fulfills a lot of needs. So it's, yeah, yeah.
I'm very grateful that you shared that with us. You've already mentioned a few reasons why shiatsu is so special to you. Is there anything that comes to mind when I'm asking you this question? Why is shiatsu so special?
Why so special? So what? To me personally, or
To you personally, yes,
oh,
and
to
we'll
me
move on
personally.
to others later.
Okay. So on one level, it's special to me on in lots of different ways. One, it's allowed me to develop. It's allowed me to get an insight into myself through, through the meridians, through the practice of it. It's allowed me to be much more centered how I approach things, or I try to be much more. Also, I think I enjoy, if I can, I enjoy what I do a lot, right? I get a lot of satisfaction of seeing clients and working with clients. I mean, yeah. So on those three levels, that's what it's given me, I think.
So it's allowed you to develop yourself, to find
Yes.
an insight within
Yeah,
yourself.
and yes. So not only has it allowed me to develop myself, like trying to understand myself, right? It doesn't mean that I don't fall into the same holes every time. I still fall into the same ones. I still fall into the same traps, but at least I know why I'm there, right? I'm not blind to the fact that I've reacted in this way. The other thing that I really appreciate about shiatsu is that it allowed me to tap into a part of myself that I think up until my first 3 decades I'd ignored. And so I think this whole idea of working with people and the physical aspect, I wasn't a very physical person. I would always analyze things intellectually or try to, right? I wasn't, so it's allowed me to expand that area of my life. So it's kind of rounded me out a little bit, I think. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful to hear that because from the outside, it comes across as if shiatsu has contributed so much to your journey.
Yeah, I think it has.
Wonderful. How would you describe shiatsu to someone that has never heard about it before?
Yeah, this is a problem. Yeah, and this is kind of one of the problems of or difficulties with shiatsu itself, because I think it's not necessarily easy to describe, and the way it is described sometimes I think is counterproductive because it gets in the way. So if I was to describe shiatsu, right, you could just be very basic and say it's a Japanese bodywork. It's done on the floor and you keep your clothes on. Right? Mm-hmm. That's sort of a brief description. I think if you start using words like ki, mm-hmm. I think you get into all sorts of problems because I think it's ill-defined and it mm-hmm. means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And I think it actually ends up describing something that shiatsu, from my perspective, is not. Right. So I think if I was to describe to shiatsu to somebody, I would say that it is a treatment that allows you, hopefully, to connect both physically and non-physically with whatever imbalances you may be experiencing. And the important word there, I think, is connect. Mm-hmm. Because with a lot of other physical therapies, or this is why if you use the word like ki or energy or any of these type of words that a lot of people use, it's almost like you're giving something to somebody or doing something to somebody. And I think the beauty of shiatsu, and this is for a lot of other therapies too, right? It's not, it can be anybody who can do this. But I think shiatsu is particularly well suited to this, is that it allows you to enter into a conversation with the person and that you're working with them rather doing something to them. And it's a two-way process. So the whole idea of pressure, which is in the name of shiatsu, is really important because that allows both you and the person you're working with to feel what's going on and to make some kind of connection both between you and the person themselves with their body and their brain, or their feeling, how they're feeling emotionally and how they're feeling physically. And it allows them, therefore, to understand themselves a bit more and see what's happening with themselves. And you are just the conduit in that. You are just the helper. And the idea of doing or giving energy or kind of zapping them with ki or any of these kind of things that people say. So I don't like the things like energetic body work and all these kind of descriptions I hear, because you're not doing that. You're not doing that. Well, I'm not doing that. Maybe other people are.
I'm hearing a lot about a conversation between the receiver and the giver.
Yeah, so it's kind of connecting with the important word is, for me, is connection. You have to make a connection. So you try as much as possible to meet the person where they are, what they're presenting. You're not imposing yourself or doing stuff to them. So you have to leave yourself open, right? Not just with your intention, but with the quality of your touch, right? And, that can happen during a treatment. It doesn't have to be from the first touch, but it's, and that's why all this stuff about shiatsu, like being centered, being balanced, being stable, that's my mantra from the first class, right? So that's all we talk about in the first class, because unless you have that, the quality, that will help enhance the quality of your touch and leave you open.
So from this point of view, what would you say is the role of the giver, of the practitioner in the treatment?
Okay. So if you get someone that comes to see you, the first thing you need to do is to, need, there's a big word, need. The way I approach it is I try to keep myself as open as possible, right, and allow myself to listen to the person. So I don't particularly talk very much to my clients, but if they talk a lot, then that's fine. That's what they need to do. That's their space, right? So then what I try to do is try to, through touch, make them aware themselves of where they might be holding any kind of negative thoughts, feelings, or maybe it's just, and it could be lodged in their body, or it could be just a physical thing. So my idea is, let's say I'm working with someone, they come with a stiff shoulder. So I try, and I kind of like it when people come to me with concrete things. It's kind of a challenge. So if they come with a stiff shoulder or a bad back, my idea is to return them to the place they were before they had that bad back, right? Or that stiff shoulder. And I don't do that by like fixing it or doing a crack and all this kind. I wish I could do that because it'd be 5 seconds and over. So I kind of have to retrain their body to remember what it was like before. But they need to be able, I don't remember that, they remember that. I'm just a conduit in helping them to reconnect with themselves. And so the way I approach it is, if I do stretches or whatever, is that I try to take put them in a position, whether it's a rotation or a stretch, that is optimum from them at that point, and then we expand upon that. So we just build it and build it so their sense of comfort increases. And that can only happen when they feel comfortable within themselves, and I'm comfortable myself doing the treatment to them. Did I explain that right?
Indeed. And I've made a lot of notes. And from what I'm hearing is that the practitioner holds the space for the receiver to become aware of the imbalance in their bodies.
Yeah, so you help them connect back with themselves, right? And you do that in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Right? You see lots of and what is interesting is that you don't need to do this, you can do it without, but I find using the meridians and the diagnosis and understanding the meridians, how they relate to that person, useful. It gives me an avenue that I can go down, right? So that's why I like Shiatsu as well, because it has that layer of the meridians and the diagnosis that helps. But having said that, I shy away from talking to my clients in that kind of language. I never talk to my clients. I don't ever think I've said the word yin and yang to any of my clients. I don't think I've used the word ki to any of my clients that I've been seeing for all these years, because I try to talk to them as much as possible in a language that they understand and a language that makes sense to them.
Sounds like a wonderful job to have.
Oh, maybe it's, you have to. Yeah. And again, that's the whole thing about making a connection. Where are you going to meet your client? At what point?
Yeah.
Right. And they're all different. So, but at the same time, you've got to have a certain core in yourself. You can't be different for each client, right? But nonetheless, I still find that you have to be versatile enough or flexible enough or accommodating enough to meet your clients where they will feel most comfortable.
Yeah, so it comes with a lot of adaptability as well.
Yeah, and that comes with a lot of experience too. But,
I can appreciate that. Since we've talked a little bit about the clients, I wonder, with, of course, consideration to their confidentiality, whether there have been any special or significant moments throughout your career, moments that will stay with you forever when you've worked with a client.
Not one in particular. No. There's not someone, I mean, there's so many clients that I've really been happy to work with and seeing great improvement with. But each one always gives a different challenge. I mean, I've had very, very difficult. Sometimes the most difficult clients on paper are the easiest. You know, if they come with like sciatica and they can barely walk, in many ways it's kind of easier because you're working with something concrete and you can see it, and hopefully you can make an improvement, and that's good. Everyone's happy, right?
When you say difficult, do you refer to the physical aspect? Let's say injuries. When you say difficult, like difficult clients, are you referring to the physical aspects such as injuries, or you've mentioned the sciatica, or are there other elements?
I like it when they have I like it. In many ways, I find it less challenging when people come with physical problems, because it's something quite solid that you can work on and you can quite easily see improvements. Right? It's much more difficult when people come with very nefarious, hidden, undisclosed stuff that is making them feel bad. That takes much longer, right? And because my style is not to talk very much necessarily, you know, it's working on them over a long period of time and getting them to realize what it might be. And that self-realization, when they have that, that's great. You kind of see it in themselves. You know? Sometimes it's small things, but yeah. But I don't have like one client that I thought, oh wow, that's amazing. No, I'm sorry, it's a bit boring answer, but
no, don't be
I've had
sorry.
lots of so many different types of clients that it's difficult to pick one. I mean, I like working with older people.
Tell me more about that.
With older people, yeah, I like working with. I have a lot of clients who are I don't have so many young clients for some reason, but I have lots of older clients, and I'm happy with that.
What makes it so rewarding, so fulfilling to work with older clients?
They have more experience. And they've hopefully understood things about themselves, so it's easier for me in that regard.
I see.
Yeah.
That was not a boring answer at all.
No.
So I appreciate that. There's no need to apologize.
No.
Was there a significant moment when you've decided that this career path, that becoming a shiatsu practitioner and dedicating so much of your life to shiatsu, was the right moment for you? Or was it just a gradual build up of experiences and you found yourself here?
In many ways it was, but thinking back on it, I think halfway through my stint in Japan, if I'm honest, probably I didn't, not consciously, I didn't say, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I go back, right? Mm-hmm. But I think then I realized that probably this is what I'm going to do. You know, I think it was up until going to Japan, I never had the confidence to think of myself. This is interesting. I never had the confidence to think of myself as a shiatsu practitioner because I don't think for a lot of people I fit the mode because I was always joking. But the first person that made me feel like that was Ohashi in New York when I studied with him, and then much more so Suzuki Sensei in Japan. And I don't think he understood, you know, because so when I first started shiatsu, I was always maybe it was a defensive thing. I was always like joking around, not taking it seriously, kind of, you know, not being particularly new age about it all, you know, and, you know, being self-deprecating. That doesn't come across when someone doesn't speak English and in Suzuki's, and it doesn't come across when you study in the way that you study in Japan, right? When you study in Japan, especially with Suzuki Sensei, you just go to the class every week and you do the same thing again and again and again. Then you start again. This is in the morning session. And in the afternoon session, it was the advanced class. And there was a gulf. It was a Pacific Ocean between the two, right? So you're talking about all this stuff that was so over my head in the afternoon. But in the morning, just went over it and over and over it. And I quite like doing it like that, right? And so I think it was Suzuki that gave me the confidence to feel that I could do this because he didn't understand, or I didn't actually joke in his class because that wasn't, you know, what you did, but he didn't really understand my self-deprecation. And so he just saw all through that. And I think just his comments throughout, thought, okay, maybe I'm quite good at this then. If he thinks I'm all right, then I must be all right. So I think then is when I decided, maybe year 2, year 3 in Japan, when, you know, kept on going and going and going. And then I suppose I thought, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
That shows a great level of self-awareness because you've mentioned the coping mechanism and the self-deprecating humor, which you were aware of.
Yes, I did it on purpose.
Yes, it was holding you back from something that you, like you said earlier, was kept in the shadow. But then you had your mentor showing you that actually there's something else there.
Yeah, but he couldn't see all that nonsense, right? That didn't mean anything. He couldn't see it, so he just saw me as just another person that went to his classes. And I suppose I kept on going, and you know, he wasn't the most. I mean, his style of teaching, you couldn't do it over here, right? You know, I couldn't teach like he taught. I mean, he would just say, "Oh, that's no good," and walk away, right? Or occasionally he might say, "That's not bad, Nick," and walk away. That was it. That was his form of assessment, right? But you just kept on going. You know, it's a very sort of traditional Oriental way of studying. Just repeat, 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 repeat. And eventually your master, your sensei might say, that's not bad.
You can move on from that. Yes, it's so wonderful. I can relate to a specific level with this because I have also qualified in India, and the traditional way of teaching and the styles of learning, for example, Ashtanga yoga, which is one of them that I practice, doesn't have much to do with what's being taught in the West.
Yeah.
But I am so happy that you've shared that memorable moment with us. Are there any other memorable moments from your shiatsu journey?
Are there memorable moments? from my
or
shiatsu.
any difficult moments. Those are very valuable as well.
The difficult moment, as I said, was when I made the transition back from Japan to London, and I was a bit lost for a few months. And no one knows who you are, and I'm not very good at networking or things. I mean, the only reason that I actually hooked up with the college that I'm running with Veronica now was because I was someone that I shared a lot of my training with, Chris McAllister. He called me and said, let's go and see Veronica. I said, oh, okay. And so I went. So I think my difficulties have been because I haven't really put myself out there very often. So of course, and also actually what was difficult was when I got back, I was in no man's land because I didn't, even though I studied all this time and had all these qualifications from overseas, they weren't really recognized over here. So I had a lot of difficulties trying to explain to people that, well, what do you want me to do? I took shiatsu as far as I could take it when I was in London in the 80s, but since I've been away for 5.5 years, it's all changed. It's got very kind of formalized, and I've fallen out of the system, as it were. So do you want me to start again? But I'm teaching at a college. Do you want me to be a student at the college and, whatever? So getting kind of myself ratified, credentialized was difficult. No, it wasn't difficult. So I ended up having to go through the old route of getting myself recognized as a shiatsu practitioner, and that took longer than it should have done.
I see.
And that was actually that was quite difficult. Well, it wasn't difficult for me, but it was something I needed to do. So yeah.
When it comes to the shiatsu community in the UK, the way that we have it today, I wonder if you have any hopes, or how do you see things moving forward for shiatsu in general?
Shiatsu in general?
Yes, within the UK and of course beyond, hopefully.
I hear a lot of more pessimistic things about shiatsu, like it's not as popular as it was, or there used to be more people, used to be thing. I'm a bit more optimistic, really, than that. If I'm honest, I think there is a place for shiatsu. I think it's proved its longevity. I think this whole kind of big group of I don't know what you want to call them, holistic medicines or complementary medicine, it's relatively new, right? It's relatively new, and lots of things sort of go and come. I remember when in the 80s, things like the Alexander technique was massive, right? And things like this. And so I think there will always be a place for shiatsu. I think the problem that shiatsu has is your very first question. It's quite difficult to define, right? And it often falls between two stools in many ways. So that's what I think the difficulty is. If you say to someone, I do reflexology, they immediately understand. If you say I do aromatherapy or even Pilates, they immediately understand. I think shiatsu is far more difficult to define. And I think because of that, it's, anyone you ask to define shiatsu, right? I think, they can use the easiest way is ways I disagree with, like energy work or key work or things like that, because I don't understand what they mean by those words. And I've been doing it for years, right? Or I have a different concept of what I think those words mean. Right? So because for that reason, it's difficult to define. And also the training of it, I guess it's 3 years, but it needs to be 3 years. But then again, it falls between, if you're going to study for, all right, it's only part-time and it's cheaper, but if people are going to give that amount of time, they might go and do something like osteopathy or acupuncture, or if they don't want to do that time, they go off and they do aromatherapy or sports massage and do it in 9 months, right? So I think that's its problem. But I won't be too pessimistic. There's still lots of people out there. And yeah, I'm out there all the time doing stuff, doing intro evenings and all that kind of stuff. And I find there's there seems to be an audience for it. There seems to be a keenness for it. Maybe it was bigger in the 90s or 80s, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's more competition now. There's many more therapies. I mean, we're a small part of a thriving ecosystem, and that's okay. We just got to keep our standards up, we just got to do our best.
I really like your optimistic perspective, and yes, I have heard some of the pessimistic opinions around, but I do have a lot of faith in Shiatsu, and I really think that a lot of people need it. And if we continue
I think I think as well, right, why we have to be a little bit optimistic. It's stuff like this, right? Like, so I'm not very good at social media and I don't do any of this stuff, but I know that it's really popular and I understand why people do it. But any kind of massive transformation in society, right? And we're going through one now with this technological revolution, right? Disrupts how people relate to each other and how they think. It's got to, right? It's been so massive. I mean, what's good about it from my perspective and from a purely selfish perspective is that I'm old enough to choose whether to opt in or opt out. If I was younger, if I was your age or younger, I wouldn't have a choice. I'd have to opt in or I wouldn't have any friends or I'll be seen as a weirdo, right? This is going to have ramifications, right? If people are virtual, if people are online, if people, young people, they use their phone for everything except as a phone. They don't talk. And I was told by people, if you ring them, they unfriend you, right? That's the cardinal sin. Do not ring me on a phone, right? You have to text, you have to message, you have to do all this kind of stuff. I can't be bothered with that stuff. I like to ring people, right? But I think because of that, right, there will always be a place for something like Shiatsu, even more so, because that need for human connection, and we go back to that word again, connection, will only increase. Well, I hope it will only increase because it's kind of an antidote to the many great things about the technological revolution, but with every kind of revolution, there's bad things that come with it too. So we can be part, if we position ourselves properly, as part of helping out with that and helping people to get back into themselves and relate to people as real living, breathing people rather than a screen.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that. And I'm very happy that you've mentioned this perspective because you're right. Yes, times are changing. Technology becomes more advanced, but one thing that will never change is the need for connection.
Hopefully.
No matter how many devices or no matter who's rejecting the phone call.
It's a human instinct, and that's, I guess, how things like Shiatsu evolved through human instinct. The need to touch people in the right way.
Yeah.
In a restorative way, and that's always been there. It's been there for centuries, and it will carry on being there. So I feel confident, and I also feel confident because there's lots of different types of Shiatsu, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. I try to keep abreast. I'm not very good at keeping abreast of what everybody else is doing out there. But I hear a lot, and I hear from my students and my graduates, and they go off and do stuff, and they do different types, and they're on this and they're doing that. And I think that's brilliant. It means it's living. Yeah. And so I'm happy there's so many different types, and they're all equally brilliant, I guess, as long as, they're authentic and they're not conning people. It's brilliant. So for that reason, there's not one style of Shiatsu, which is such a good thing.
I really value your perspective, and it's very interesting. I do invite you all to watch all the other episodes as well, so you can see perspectives from different angles. But
catch up.
Personally, I'm an optimistic, and whenever I hear that there is an opportunity to thrive in any environment, it just speaks directly to my heart, and I'm very happy that you've mentioned this today.
Definitely, people should, I think people in the Shiatsu community should stay optimistic. Why wouldn't they?
I appreciate that. I do have a final question for you, if you allow me. But before I go ahead, in case anyone else has any questions, just prepare them. And after this question, we can open the space for a few minutes if Nik allows us.
Sure.
I wonder, what would you tell someone who's just starting on the Shiatsu journey, a Shiatsu practitioner who just began practicing, what would be 2-3 advices that you would give them? So
my advice
yes.
to someone who's just starting the Shiatsu course.
Yes, or they start the Shiatsu journey.
Just started Shiatsu training. Yeah, my advice would be practice, and then practice. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a bit boring, but they have to go and in their time and practice. And that, I think that absolutely anybody can. Absolutely. Why do I speak in absolutes? I think that nearly everybody can be a good Shiatsu practitioner if they commit themselves and they practice. That's what I really believe that. Yeah.
I hear practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's my training in Japan speaking, which kind of makes sense. It's fair enough. But you don't, we started talking about intuition and people tell me they're this, they're intuitive, they're all that. And I just think, yeah, great, practice. Intuition comes from practicing, right? A mother's intuition comes from being close to her child and understanding her child. So just practice, right? And that's the basic. And then it's get comfortable with yourself and leave yourself open. Just try and find a spot where you're comfortable and leave yourself open, because you have to be open to your client, which means you can't get in the way, right? So if you get in the way by your own thought processes or your own body position, or you're feeling uncomfortable, then that's going to impact on your sensitivity. So you just need to get as comfortable as possible so you almost disappear. Mm-hmm. So all your focus is on your client. But that comes with, guess what? It comes with.
We've already heard it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I would like to open the space for questions in case any of you have any questions.
I see something come up, but
there's a comment from Caroline. She says, Caroline, forgive me for the mispronunciation. English is not my first language. Is Shiatsu just as affected as a massage table?
How are you? Oh, you're frozen. Good to see you, by the way.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Old student.
The old student, yes. Yeah, so well, I've got a couple of questions, but I'll only ask one for now. Okay. I'll let everybody else have a chance. But I think I'll need to do Shiatsu from on a massage bed because my knees are weak. And yeah, it's a big transition for me because I like sort of doing it on the floor and the futon. It's what I'm used to. Will I be able to do the same work on a massage table?
Do you want me to be blunt? Yeah, there are.
Oh no!
The lower the table, Caroline. The lower the table, the better, right? And there are some. Yeah. There's definitely some stretches you can do on the table, which is fine, right? Especially some of the stretches we teach in the third year, right? More like the meridian stretches and things like that. You should be able to do those. But it's a question about you getting centered and being able to work on a table, and that's easier when it's on a floor. But do you know what? You should come and see me because you're quite close to where the college is now, aren't you? Or you used to be?
Well, I can get there.
Yeah, and maybe we can adjust your position when you're working on the floor. Let's start with that.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Can I just ask one more question? You said that clients, that when you said you were working with clients, you said that older clients, they've got a bit of understanding of themselves, and also they understand themselves more through the treatment. Could you just explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. Okay. So I think when, maybe I've been lucky with the kind of clients that I've had, but they come already with kind of a lot of life lessons, right? And so if you have an older client who's willing to book in for a Shiatsu treatment, then that already that showed you that they probably thought about themselves, right? And so so when you talk to older clients and you do treatments of that, even though it's more difficult physically, because some of them can't even get onto the floor very easily, right? If I'm honest, yeah. And things like this, even though it might be more difficult working with them, because of the style that I use, which is, you know, it's not about doing stuff to them, but being with them and seeing where we can go together. They've already thought about this stuff, or they've lived through it, or they're aware of their stuff, right? And so they talk about past stuff much more and how to resolve it. And so, and also, you know, it's just, for me, it's more satisfying working with people like that, rather than someone who's just come from the gym and they want me to give them sort of like a workout and do stuff to them. You know, I'm not, you know, that's not really my style.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions, and Nick, thank you for answering them. Do we have any other questions? Please unmute yourself if you feel the need to, or if you want to share something, or Nick, in case you wanted to share something that I did not touch on during our conversation, please, by all means.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I
is
saw
there
you.
anything I didn't answer properly? It's difficult for me to know. Is there anything I should have said in more detail? Wasn't unclear? I was just quite happy answering your questions as best I could.
Wonderful. Claire, do you have a question?
Well, it's back to the hi, Nick.
Hello, Claire. How are you?
Hi.
I was going to contact you, but about something else. But anyway.
Okay. Well, interesting hearing this conversation.
Yeah.
Because I've returned back to Shiatsu after 10 years, and
Yeah.
I definitely agree with when I receive a Shiatsu, it really connects you with your body, and that's the biggest thing for me.
Yes.
So when you work with the more elderly people,
Yeah.
do you adapt your practice in any way? Do you do less kind of arm stretches and leg rotations and twists?
No. Okay. So going back to the original point, you've got to meet the person where they are, right? So if I work, so this is, can I move to you? You can see. So that might be a stretch for someone, especially, you know, I used to work with this old boy who couldn't take the shaving gel out of the bathroom cupboard, right? So that was a stretch for him, right? So that's what I meant. I had to meet him where he was, kind of show him how far he went, and then work with him so after one or two treatments, he went from there to there. So I adapt it. They tell me how far I can go, right? And I take them to their optimal point, right? And we stay there.
Verbal communication.
Huh?
Verbal communication.
No, you can feel it.
Just feeling it, listening.
Just feeling it. So it's all about taking them to their natural position as far as they can go now, right? And then retraining the body or trying to open it up, right? And you go back and you do a small stretch, and you go back and you just work on the meridian or the group, and eventually they will start moving. I think so. It's try not to force it with them, and be patient, and then they will feel it eventually. And when they feel more comfortable, that gives the green light to go a bit further. Yes. But a stretch is what the person feels, not what you do to them. You know, I remember, you know, with all your experience in yoga, you're very flexible. So a stretch for you is different than a stretch for me, right?
Yes, yeah. And you can feel it when you're working with tighter people. You can definitely feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just don't get in the way, right? Don't put yourself there and think, I've got to do this, right? You've got to feel what is our optimal point, right? You've got to listen to them, and they will tell you. So every movement they can do is part of, if you want to be, you know, it's like part of the diagnosis. It's part of the information that they're telling you, right? And so that's where you've got to be, and hold them in that position, and hopefully open them up or make it easier for them. So don't do anything to them. Just be there and be confident with that. And you'll be, yeah. I think so. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I'm back at college. It's great.
Well, it's good to see you back.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, Claire, for the question as well. And Nik, thank you very much for your time, your energy, your resources, your wisdom. And
I'm not sure about the last bit, but anyway. Thank you very much.
Everyone else sees it.
Okay.
Thanks to all of you that have joined live as well. The recording will be available on YouTube. So in case you want to ask further questions, if you want to connect with us, please don't hesitate to do that through the comments. And from a marketing point of view, like, subscribe, and share anything with everyone who wants to find out more about Shiatsu. Thank you very, very much to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.